Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're going to be taking a look at a Dragoncraft Unlimited deck. It's fairly decent, of course. It is a Storm aggro kind of variant, which is mainly focused on the kind of turn 6 play area with Phoenix Rider and of course Dark Dragoon, which are both pretty great and do a wonderful job. Omen of Disdain, still a wonderful card. Again, I did predict earlier that it really wasn't going to change that much with the nerf. Mainly because once we knew what the nerf was going to be, it was very easy to tell that it was still going to be an extremely solid card. While not working as a full-on board clear, 3 damage to the face is definitely nothing to sneeze at. So definitely still a wonderful card. I really hope that if you did Violet, you've at least still gave it another chance. Definitely worth your while. Otherwise, 3 Dragonute, staple in pretty much every Dragon deck. There's not many that would forego that card just because it is that good. Poseidon, only running a 2-off for the top end as you are looking for a much earlier win than Poseidon and only really using it either as a 2-drop early ward if you need it or just holding on to it to late game to really take advantage of Phoenix Rider as some form of turn 9 combination. Otherwise, we're going to get right into it and take a look. So while we're getting straight into this match here, I just want to say it's getting extremely hot here in Australia, and with the current heat waves that we're having of about 30 degrees Celsius at the moment, 31 with reasonable humidity, it's getting quite hot, and it's a bit hard to record sometimes when you can't really run a fan to cool you down, so that's going to suck a little bit. So if I sound a bit worn out or exhausted during this next couple of months, that's most likely the reason, and it really can make things hard. I mean, sitting here right now, it's getting quite hot and already starting to sweat, but we're still playing the Shadowverse and getting right into it. So we started off with a fairly decent hand, mainly focusing on early game stuff. Goblin is a great aggressive turn 1 card, which is why pretty much every kind of aggro deck will want to run Goblin in most cases, excluding Sword, as Sword already has a decent amount of 1-drops to run on its own and doesn't really have the use for Goblin in most situations. So it does look like we're going up against some form of a Lionhaven. It doesn't really change our line of play. We can actually take a better advantage as they tend to be pretty board heavy in the cards they use, so our Phoenix Rider is actually going to have a fairly decent matchup. Of course, there's not a lot else we can do, as, I mean, we're going to get a pretty okay trade-off here. I mean, our best case scenario is to kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. Or as the meme would suggest, feed 2 birds with 1 scone. If you know that meme, geez, you're doing well in the meme community. So we're definitely ramping up here, which is great. Definitely what you want to be able to do in the kind of early game. It does set up a nice Phoenix Rider next turn, if we can use it. I'd hope that our opponent can drop a few cards. Unfortunately, that's not one of the few cards I would have liked them to drop. It's something we pretty much have to remove, which is a little disappointing. I hate being forced to remove cards. But such is life against Lionhaven. So we're going to be able to remove the White Frost and just kind of develop our board as much as we can at this point. At least we are going to be able to take these out and continue to develop our board and go as wide as possible. Even though they are all at 1 health, I don't mind that too much as they are getting their advantage pretty easily. Unfortunately, the removal had to hit our best follower, so that's going to be a little disappointing. But we have Rider, so maybe if we can just stick a couple of things here, we can at least get some damage in over the next couple of turns. Especially since we now have a second one, making this slightly better. So we're going to spread out our stats a bit, so when we go face here, we're not going to be losing too much in the next turn. It's definitely going to be a longer game, but seeing the Decree here is a good sign. It sets us up perfectly for the Poseidon on turn 8. And means it's less likely they'll have removal to deal with this. Not impossible, just a lot less likely, so definitely taking advantage of anything we can get. So there is the Holy Lion. Now I make a slight misplay here. I definitely should have played the Dragoon Scyther first. We wouldn't have missed out on 1 potential damage. Overall, I don't think it made a huge difference, but it's definitely something you don't want to do too regularly because that 1 damage can be really bad. But in our case, they conceded when they only had 2 health anyway, so there wasn't a lot they could do. Now for us to go up against what is still considered one of the best decks in the Unlimited format, Shadowcraft. Doesn't really matter what variant, there aren't too many bad variants of Shadowcraft. I mean, you've got a couple. Mordecai Shadows, not that great. Outside of that, I mean, there's only maybe one or two more that aren't very good, but I would say the vast majority of, say, mid-range variants, Atomy variants, trying to think of what else, aggro variants, control variants, are actually pretty decent, thinking back on a lot of them. Shadow's had a pretty up and down over the last couple of years. There's been times, certainly when it's absolutely dominated, and we've seen that very recently with Shadow. But there are also times when it takes a full-on dip, and you'll rarely see it on ladder for 3 months, which is personally some of my favourite time, because I don't enjoy versing Shadow too much. Even in the mirror matches it feels pretty bad, but each to their own. It's not a surprise that we're at least seeing it again, so as you saw last time, just going with a pretty aggressive line of play is always the way to do with this deck. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of options right now. I mean, I can pretty much go face and develop more board, but as far as contesting theirs, there's really not I can do, so if I could have done more, I would have liked to. And even worse, Lady Grey. The nightmare against any aggro deck. Getting any kind of healing is definitely difficult. And of course, one of the biggest drawbacks with this deck would be probably against Tenko, although Tenko is probably slow enough that this deck could beat it out. You don't really see a lot of Tenko anymore, especially in Unlimited. There's definitely a lack of that. Most people are running Lions, probably because they're cheaper. Tenko is quite a costly deck now. So as I said, don't underestimate the 3 damage burst, especially when it's both to board and face. And it's still a solid body. So we're going to get another chance to remove as much as we can. We do need to get a little lucky here, as we don't want this to kill the Lurching Corpse. Otherwise we are going to miss out on the chance to clear more of the board. So we did get a pretty nice swing there, wiping their board. Turn 6, Deathly Tyrant. Not a great way to go for a trade, honestly. So I go for the Dark Dragoon. I do decide to do 5 to face. I decided not to use the Evo, as I really wanted to save that in case of a big play with the Cerberus. I didn't want to have to miss my chance to be able to clear them out effectively, so I didn't want to take that risk, but looks like I didn't need to because it worked out very well for us. So I've got to say, right now, considering how the current metas have shaped up, I definitely think Unlimited is the more fun of the two, and it's definitely got a lot of fun decks, and that aren't too expensive. I mean, this deck is actually not that bad. I mean, we're only running 8 legendaries. That's pretty cheap these days in comparison, especially when one of those legendaries is Dark Dragoon, a fairly old one, so any kind of veteran players most likely have 3 of her, and the other 2 are actually staples in most modern decks for any kind of dragon deck, so if you've been playing dragon at all, you most likely have them at least anyway. You could probably get away with even replacing Dark Dragoon with some other Storm cards, and that could work in your favour. Not quite as well, but it could definitely work. So if you guys did enjoy this video, be sure to check out the deck list in the description below. You will be able to hit the like button and subscribe for more content. Until next time, see you.